Hey everybody, happy Saturday evening tutorial stream. How's everyone doing out there on the internet today? It's been a fun 30 minutes here at Beating Dreams with all of the technical difficulties happening. The Stream Deck wouldn't work, and then XSplit wouldn't work, and then the computer wouldn't restart, and then the hand camera wouldn't work. So, apparently it's one of those Saturdays. And this magic wand, unfortunately, is only decorative. So I tried waving it at the technology. It did not work. Hey, Mary and Lori. So, what are we doing today? We are doing Make Your Own Magic Wands, which is a silly and whimsical project that hopefully will be a lot of fun for everybody, including me. Also, you can whack people with it if they start to piss you off. So, let's talk tools and supplies for this evening's tutorial. Hi, ASO. All right, tools and supplies for this evening's tutorial. You're gonna need, apparently I need to choke on my own spit first before I can talk about supplies, but all right, you're gonna need wire. So 3 different gauges of wire that we are using for this project. Am I out of focus or, there we go. Am I out of focus or my glass is just weird? Okay, so for the handle, just so that it's as sturdy as possible, we're going to use 14 gauge wire, and I'm doing the whole thing in bronze tonight. So 14 gauge wire for the handle, 16 gauge wire, and the random note, 16 gauge wire for the actual wandy part of it, and then 26 gauge wire to attach your little beady bits, whatever you've chosen to be your beads. In addition to your wire, you are going to need beads, sparkly things, crystals, whatever you want to have kind of an assortment of sparkle-tastic bits. Here I've got some little double-ended crystals, I've got these cool marquee-shaped crystals, and then I've got one big honkin' sparkly one for the center, so hopefully I can make something cool with that. And then you're going to need some ribbon, and the ribbon's not, it's not 100% necessarily, it just gives a little bit of nice switchiness to your wand. Okay, so let's start with cutting our wire. So for the handle, you basically want to just double up whatever length you want your handle to be. So mine is about 6 inches long, so I used a foot or a little bit more than a foot of wire to make the prototype, but you can make a longer magic wand handle than this. I think I'm going to try a little bit longer tonight, so I think I'm going to cut myself a little bit more than a foot of wire, like a 14 or 15 inches worth of wire. For this part here, you're going to need more wire than you think, especially if you want to embellish and do all kinds of little loopy-loos on it. So for the prototype, I'm pretty sure I used about 3 or 4 feet of wire. Always better to have too much than not enough. So I'm going to go ahead and cut myself 4 feet of wire for that. And then my 26 gauge wire I will cut in a minute. So once again, that was of my 14 gauge wire for my handle. I'm going to cut about 15 inches of that. And again, that's just needs to be double whatever you want the length of your handle to be. And by the way, speaking of, did not talk about tools, you're going to need your basics. You're going to need chain nose pliers. You're going to need a round nose pliers. You're going to need a wire cutter. I have, for some reason, 3 of them here.
Nice work.
I know, right? But you need a heavy-duty one for that heavy gauge bronze wire. And something that I did not put on the supply list because of all of the other crap that was going on when I was getting ready is you need some kind of a mandrel or a dowel or a cylindrical object. I'm actually going to use this center punch here. So you just need something that's a cylinder, and I'll show you why in a minute. So again, 14, 15 inches of wire for the handle and 4 feet for the rest. And I may be overestimating on that 4 feet of wire, but once again, this is one of those projects where it's really hard to add a wire, so it's better to have too much than not enough. Okay, so here's where we're gonna need that cylindrical object that I was just talking about. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find the middle of my 14 gauge wire, my handle wire, and I'm gonna fold it in half. So I've got my two ends kind of lined up there, and just kind of squish down so you get a nice little fold at the end there. And then you're gonna take your round object and you're going to put it in that fold, and then you're going to take your chain nose pliers and you're going to hold the ends of the wire. And you don't have to go all the way to the end. You can leave yourself about an inch or so that you're going to use to just do your finishing. Then I'm going to take this round object and I'm just going to twist. And that is not going to go under the camera, so I will just do it here. Put my hemostat on here. Oh. Sometimes it's hard to hold two wires stable with your pliers, and the reason for that is because the pliers works like scissors. So when you grab your wires with your pliers, you really are only holding the wire that's closest to the jaw of your pliers is really the only one that's being held. The other one is being held sometimes a little bit, sometimes not at all. So let me see if this will work now. Yeah, so what's happening is as I'm twisting, that one's coming out, and it's being difficult. So a hemostat is sometimes a good way to get around this problem. And really, all you have to do is get it started, and then after you get it started, you're usually fine. Now, you can also put this in a vise. You can use a clamp of some sort. Like, there are lots of ways to do this. You can also, if you're so inclined, put the two ends in the chuck of a drill and hold this stationary and use the drill to twist it. But I finally did successfully get it started. So now I'm just going to keep rotating this cylinder around and around until I've successfully twisted up all of, oh dear, all of the wire. Miscalculations when it comes to dinner. It's terrible.
Yeah.
I swear this was easier when I did the prototype. There we go. Okay. Finally got a good grip on all of the wires.
Oh,
cool.
Okay. Here you go.
Okay. And so I'm getting my handle nice and twisted. And so I'm just going to keep, sorry, I need more room to do this than there is existing underneath the hand cam at the moment. I should have bumped it up a little bit higher for the tutorial tonight, but hey, at this point I'm just happy it's working, because like I said, it wasn't working before. There were so many technical difficulties getting on stream today. Don't know why, it's just been one of those days. Alright, so I'm going to just do a little adjusting on my little bottom bit to give it just a little bit more of a pretty shape. And so I just adjusted that a little bit with my pliers, and I'm going to go ahead and center it up like so. So that's the bottom. This is my twist, and then this is my top. And for my top of my handle, I'm just going to spread these two wires out so they kind of look like a Y. And, oh, Amy says knock knock. And I want to trim them so that they're even. Okay, so this one's a little bit longer than the other one. Just gonna eyeball that. Cut that off. And grab a round nose pliers. And I'm just gonna take these two and I'm gonna turn them forwards into each into a loop. And that is where I'm gonna kind of anchor on when I'm making my wand part. So I'm just gonna take my round nose pliers and I'm going to grab flush with the end of my wire, okay? And I'm grabbing kind of in the middle of my round nose pliers for a couple of reasons. Number one, I need to make a loop that's big enough to accommodate my 16 gauge wire. So if I go all the way down here, it's not going to happen. It's not going to be a thick enough loop. Second of all, the tips of your pliers are fairly fine. This is great if you're trying to make little loops on fine gauge wire, but if you're trying to, move something that's chunky monkey wire like this 14 gauge, the tips literally aren't strong enough. You're not going to be able to move the wire. So I'm going to go down a little bit. I'm going to grab as flush as I can. I'm just going to press against my finger and I'm going to rotate that. And if you got to rotate it in baby steps, that's fine. Like I just did. And rotate it all the way over to make a loop like so. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my other wire. Just rotate it in baby steps until you have these two kind of bunny ears. We do want those to be closed, so I'm just going to squish that closed like so that I have closed loop and closed loop. So that is the handle for my magic wand. Now let's do the non-handle part. So the non-handle part is going to start with, and you can definitely freeform this as much as you want, but I'm going to start with a pretty big spiral. Then I'm going to come through this attachment, make another circle around, and then, make another circle around, and then I'm going to wrap it on here. Non-handle part. It is a technical term. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it here, and then I'm going to continue around with my little loop-de-doos, and then come back around and finish it off here. So you've got basically two anchor points of your handle to your wandy, but you've got that one here, and then you've got your wrapping here, which is under my ribbon. And that's another reason that I put the ribbon on there, is the wrapping part's not the prettiest part of the wand, so it kind of helps to camouflage a little bit. So when I'm doing a spiral, I'm going to start with my round nose pliers. So round nose pliers are just going to grab at the end of my 16 gauge wire. And again, this is a 4-foot long piece of 16 gauge wire. Okay, this is a large piece of wire. Take your round nose pliers, grab at the end of your wire, and just do the same little baby steps around to make. It doesn't even have to be a full loop, but it can be. So you want to start with a loop or part of a loop. That's going to form the middle of your spiral. Now I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and I'm just going to hang on to that loop. And what I'm trying to do here is make an open spiral. Okay, so I'm not trying to make a spiral where all of the arms of my spiral are touching each other. I want there to be space. All right, it doesn't necessarily have to be quite as much space as this one, but I want there to be space in there. So I'm just going to take my pliers and start rotating this wire around in this spiral, and see how I'm just not quite pulling it as hard as I could to pull that right down against. And I'm just going to keep sort of moving along. This wire is trying to kill me.
No.
Well, that's what I said, but it does not seem to want to listen. It wants to just grab everything in my work area and just fling it randomly about. It wants to redecorate the whole thing.
He's watching in absentia.
Okay, so there's my spiral. So now I'm going to go through my handle. So just take the end of the wire, go through your two little handle. Okay, so like so. So I've got that through the handle. Then I'm going to come around with another big loop, and then I'm going to wrap that on down here. So I can just center that up, and just this I'm just going to freehand. One of the cool things about this project is it's, you know, kind of freeform and organic. So I've got my big loop coming around, and then I'm going to wrap it and anchor it right there. Now, if it looks a little funky right now, it's just like when we're soldering. It's always easier to shape a closed construction, so it's going to be easier. All right, so I'm just taking this, and this is going to be tough to wrap because it's 16 gauge, so it's sturdy, okay? So it's always easier to shape a closed construction than an open construction. So that means that once I anchor it on, it's going to be easier to kind of manipulate all of this. So I'm going to take my chain nose pliers, and I'm just going to kind of crimp that. I'm going to try real hard not to smash my finger and give myself another matching blood blister to that one. But I just crimped it down. I tightened it down a bit on that handle. So now it's not moving. Like it is anchored in place. So that is what I want. So now I can mess with the size and shape of my piece. All right, and I think maybe I'm going to make kind of an asymmetrical one. So I'm not going to put that spiral in the center. I'm going to put it a little bit off to the side. Now I can start doing the little decorative bits, and those are just going to basically come out and loop through, and I'm just going to do that all the way around. So that means I need to take my end of my wire, and I'm just going to put it through like so, and don't just pull on it, but you're gonna have to kind of feed it through like so, because if you just pull on it, it's gonna tighten down in a really weird fashion. So just kind of feed it through like so, and then when it's time to make your loop, go ahead and pull that loop tight so that you have a nice little kind of teardrop shape bit there. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing. So I'm going to do 5 total. So that's 1. So then again, my end apparently goes through the power cord to Heather's phone. And so I'm going with the end of my wire from the underneath of my wire of my circle up over the top, and then I'm going there we go. Next, so it's again, I'm going underneath, and then I'm coming what I was grimacing at before. So I'm coming then back over the top here. All right, so that is 3, and there's 4. So again, I'm just going from the bottom to the top and then over the end of that wire. So once you've fed it all through, then you can just take your wire and move it over to make that little teardrop bit. Okay, and so then I can come back down here and I can anchor it off again with the wrap. And once again, the 16 gauge wire is a pain in the booty to wrap. It really is. So take that up and just kind of slide it up. And once again, use your chain nose pliers to just sort of crimp that wire down so that it holds firmly on the handle and it's not moving up and down. And then this is going to be actually my finishing wrap. So I'm going to just wrap around a couple more times. And the wrapping with the 16 is a huge pain in the butt. Also, it's still trying to kill my camera and everything else. But I got 3 wraps around, and now I can trim this off. So I did cut about a foot too much wire. I could have gotten away with 3 feet instead of 4 feet, but
well, haven't we all been there?
right? But the 3 feet of wire, you know, if you had wanted to embellish more, if you'd wanted to do more little loop-de-loos or things like that, the 4 feet of wire would have been better. So it's just kind of about how fancy do you want to get with this. Now, I'm going to take my little loop-de-loos and I'm going to change the shape of them a little bit, because I think I want this to be a little bit more like a pointy flower and less like a roundy flower. And yes, roundy flower is a technical term.
Totally.
You know how I know? Because I just made it up and I am an expert. So, to unroundy my flower, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find approximately the middle of each little bit, and I'm just going to take my chain nose pliers and just push to make a little corner. Sorry, my fingers are so dirty. I've been wire wrapping all day today, working on the project that I was working on the Zoom last night, those 10 pendants. I got 5 of them done.
Yay.
Which is good since, you know, they're due on Monday. And today's theoretically the last day of my work week, though I don't think it's the last day of my work week since I have to make 5 more pendants by Monday. Okay, so now I've got pointy flower petals, which I like better. Those are fun. And then I'm just going to kind of redistribute out my little loops so that, because see how they've kind of all sort of come inside of the wire. So I'm just going to re-tighten and rejigger those so that they go back on the outside. Alright, so now I have pointy flower. Now it's time to embellish it, which is the fun part, of course. So to embellish, I'm going to use my 26 gauge wire, and it's not really a precise amount of this that I have to cut. I'm just going to, because it's all going to be separate pieces, so I'm just going to start with this poor spool of 26 gauge wire. It's just, something happened with the spooler when they were spooling up this wire, because it's just having issues. So I'm going to start with my center, which is going to be this big ass sparkly thing, and that's going to sit right here on top of my center spiral. So I'm just going to take some 26 gauge wire and I'm going to hold that across my wire here, and I'm going to wrap it on, and I'm just going to do that about 4 or 5 times. Especially if you are going to give this to a small person to play with, you do want to make sure that everything is firmly attached. Also, these are all small parts, so you definitely should not give this to any small people who are not old enough to know not to put random things in their mouth.
That's pretty much true of
That's pretty much true of jewelry in general. It is. But since this is more of, you know, kind of almost a kid-friendly project, I feel extra need to say it on this stream. Okay, so I'm going to then trim my end off, and I'm going to use my chain nose pliers to press that end down like so. I'm going to grab my bead and just throw that onto my wire like so. Pull it all the way down. Pull it all the way down and just set it on the front of that spiral, and then I'm going to anchor it on here. And this is a little bit squirrelier because there's obviously much less space here now that the bead is on there. So just take it slow. Your wire is going to want to kink, so just don't rush. That is going to just make everything worse. So just fish it through like so, and then pull it through. And make sure you pull it nice and tight, because we want this to be pretty firmly on there. We don't want it to be flopping around. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to repeat that. So I'm going to take my end of my wire, and I'm just going to fish it back to front, up through that spiral, and then just grab the end of the wire and carefully pull it through, just watching for any kinks in the wire. We don't kink shame here on the Beading Dreams stream, but we also don't like kink in our wire. Prefer my wire to be without kink. Just saying. All right, and I'm going for 5, so I'm just going to repeat that. That's 2, so 3 more times. Yes, exactly. Vanilla wire only, please. And I'm just going to take that over here to do that, because if I try and do it under the camera, it's going to take me 8,000 years. This is also a good trick if you're trying to keep your wire from kinking, this lovely double chin thing that I'm doing here, which is the mostest attractivest thing ever on the planet. But it really does help me at least keep my wire from kinking when I'm trying to get it through a small space like this. Okay, so now I've got my big sparkly is wrapped on there. So I'm just going to take the end of my wire, I'm going to trim it off using my wire cutters. And again, that pokey stabby end right there, we're just going to press that down with our chain nose pliers. Okay, so now I think I'm going to take these marquees, and I'm going to wrap them on in these, this spot, and this spot, so they'll kind of hang down. Hopefully that'll work as well as I think it will. So these are top drilled. So when I'm doing a top drill, I'm going to do a couple of things to make sure that it stays fairly secure. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is anchor my wire on up here. Again, just fishing it through, wrapping it around. So this part is the same for all of the everything. Okay, so I've got that wire anchored on there, and I'm going to take my marquee shaped drop. I'm just going to thread that onto my wire, and I'm just going to kind of let it sort of hang out down right below, and I'm going to wrap this around 3 times as well. And once again, there's less room here, there's a bead here, so again, just take your time. Through there, and up and over, through. Okay, and so when I talk about kinks in your wire, this is what I'm talking about here, okay? This is what happens when your wire gets twisted, and if it gets pulled too hard, it's going to make a kink in your wire, which is a spot where your wire just gets twisted, really, really tightly, and potentially might break. Okay, so there's that. Now what I want to do is I want to stabilize the top here. And so I'm going to do that with this same wire. And I'm going to take my wire and I'm going to wrap it around this part of my bead. So I'm just going to start going behind the bead, and then through, and behind again, up, through. Okay, so I'm just wrapping around that part of my bead to stabilize it. See how it's not flopping back and forth anymore? and I'm just going to kind of anchor it onto around my frame and around the bead, and I'm just trying my best to stabilize this, and I think all I'm really doing is making a mess, which is, I guess, also a thing that you could do, is make a mess on purpose, but that was not my goal. Definitely made a bit of a mess there. I tried to save it with a little Z-bend, and now I'm just going to see if I can just wrap more wire around there. So that kind of worked out better. So the moral of the story here, I think, is that something that's as long and skinny as this maybe isn't as good a choice as these teardrops, because they're not so floppy. So that wasn't the best choice for this, but you know, we're gonna go with it for now. It is stable enough. It's a little floppy still, but it's much better. So we're gonna go with that, but I'm gonna skip the other two, also because I just noticed what time it is, which of course is because I got on 30 minutes late because of all the technical difficulties. So many of the technical difficulties. Okay, so I think this is about as stable as it's gonna get. It doesn't look awful. I'm gonna go with, I can be happy with this. So then I'm just gonna wrap off my wire around the side of my frame, like so. And then once I wrap that off, I can trim, and I can press down. Again, my pokey stabby end can just get pressed down. All right, so again, maybe not ideal, but it's not bad. It's a very cool shape. Oh, and I can cut this end off as well. It's a very cool shape, which is why I picked it. Once again, just a shorter teardrop probably would have been significantly easier for me to use, or something like these pieces here that has two holes, so I could anchor it at the top and anchor it at the bottom. So, you know, live and learn, no big deal. All right, so I'm gonna do, let's see, what do I want to do? Okay, I want to add a couple more little like jewelry bits onto this. So I think I'm just going to do two on the sides, again, just for the sake of time. Red ones. No, I think I'm going to go with blue ones. Okay, so I'm going to do two, I'm just going to do two little crystals, and I'm just going to put them in this petal and in the opposite petal over here. And these do have two anchor points, which I think is going to make them easier to work with than the marquise that I just was messing with. And the hardest part is going to be getting wire off of this incredibly difficult spool of 26 gauge. Like seriously, y'all, you're not supposed to have to use pliers to get the wire off of the spool. Okay, so once again, all right, so I'm going to put one here. I'm just going to anchor. anchor this on. And then I'm going to go through the hole in my crystal. So this is a fun project for like vintage chandelier parts and things like that. And then I think what I'm actually going to do for this is I'm just going to wrap around here to get to the other side rather than anchoring it off and starting a new wire. I think I'm just going to use that wire as a little decorative element and kind of travel to the other hole in my crystal. So I'm just wrapping that around the edge like so. And then once I'm at a place where I can stick it through the other hole, go ahead and pull it. And then just wrap 3 times or so to anchor it off. And so that way you're avoiding having quite so many ends, and also it's just a, it's a little bit more secure. Got a little bit more support there. All right, and then we can trim off our ends. So trim and trim. So I'm just going to come off there. And again, pokey stabbies get pressed down. And this is another good trick of if you want to really get your pokey stabbies wrapped around the wire if they're kind of long, just put your chain nose pliers on them and then rotate your piece around, and that's a really good way to get them pressed down. So there's that, except for the fact that that one's not really pressed down. Squish you. Alright, and I'm going to do one more that I'm going to put over here, and then I'm going to call it a day on this one. But of course you can just keep on embellishing and embellishing and embellishing. And should this be a starter prop for a Halloween costume? That's a good thought. I feel like that costume would probably also have to involve a tiara of some sort. Okay, so I've got that on there, and then once again I'm just gonna travel my wire around. As your wire gets shorter, it gets a little easier to work with. You don't have to worry about kinks as much when your wire gets shorter. And then when I get to a spot where I can get that through that hole, I'm just going to get it through my other hole. Sorry, y'all. I'm having that day of I'm just bashing my camera. Or diadems. I did do, and I need to do another crown diadem class. Alright, and then you can trim. And then just, again, smash your ends down with your chain nose so that they are not going to stab yourself or any small people to whom you might choose to give this magic wand. Okay, so that is, okay, you know, I can't do it. It's gotta go. It's coming off. You were just a bad idea. So what I think I'm going to do instead is I'm going to do one more of these up top, and then I will call it a completed project and go get ready for the live merchandise sale, because of course it is, I'm just going to yank all this wire off of here, it is Saturday night. That means that it is the day of the Sips shopping and shenanigans sale. We are concluding our martini month here on the Beating Dreams stream with Pickle-Teenies. Tonight we're very excited by that because we all like pickles here at the Beating Dreams. So yeah, pickle martinis. Mary, I believe, has several different kinds of pickle juice, so she's doing a pickle martini flight, which just sounds awesome and fabulously wonderful. And we're going to be doing Indian glass strands for you guys tonight. We're going to be doing some more of the budget rando strandos that have been doing so well on the stream, and we're also going to do a little bit more clear the wall at 25% off. So that's going to start about 30 minutes after the end of this tutorial, which is going to be probably around 7:45, since it looks like I'm going to end this tutorial around 7:30, not 7:30, 7:15. So the sale is going to start around 7:45. Hopefully all of my tech will continue to function during the 30-minute break and nothing will decide to explode or implode or plode of any kind. Sorry, y'all. I'm really not trying to make you motion sick. But yeah, so that's what's going on tonight after the tutorial stream. Of course, Saturday night sales are always fun because of shenanigans and Pickle-Teenies, and of course I'm sure Pickle-Teenies are going to beget lots of pickle jokes. So, you know, it's always a good time when you get to make pickle jokes on stream. And yeah, we got some fun merchandise for you as well. Alright, so I just traveled that over like I have been doing, and I'm going to bring it around, go from the back to the front on there, pull that through, and then anchor off. Yes, I like this much better. The marquee was a really good idea in my head, but in actual practical execution, not so good. Alright, and then trim your ends off. And once again, you can continue to embellish and embellish and embellish as much as you want, using as much time and as many materials as you would care to devote to your magic wand. Alright, so there we go. So now, ribbon. So I'm going to cut a couple of pieces of ribbon, and I'm going to make them about 2 feet each. So I've got about 12 inches of ribbon hanging down. So I've got 2 feet, and I'm going to do 3 pieces, I think. I said a couple, but I meant 3. So 1, 2, and you can always trim these off shorter. So if, you know, you start using your magic wand and you're like, this ribbon is too long, you can always cut it off. Easy peasy. And then it's going to go on with a lark's head. So I've got my 3 pieces of ribbon that I cut. I'm just bent them in half. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach it here to here. So I'm going to put my folded end up through these 2 parts of my wand, and then I'm going to take all 6 of my loose ends and pull them through like that. And that gives it a pretty kind of sturdy, stable place to rest. Like if you were to do it just around the bottom here, it would probably fall off. And then if you're not a huge fan of how that kind of sticks out to the side, you can always just tie an overhand knot around this at the bottom as well. But since I plan on waving my wand around, I don't really care. Alright, so that's it. That is make your own magic wand. Hopefully that was a fun tutorial for everybody. Something a little bit more whimsical and fun here on the Beating Dreams stream. We can't be serious all the time, right? Right? So for anybody out there who doesn't know me, I'm Allison from Beating Dreams in Dallas, Texas, where we make magic wands and all kinds of other cool things. We are an actual brick and mortar retail bead store, and we are here on Lover's Lane at our physical premises Monday through Saturday from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. If you're not local in Dallas, you can find us on this channel, twitch.tv/beating-dream, with a fun new project. 5 times a week, we stream Wednesday through Saturday at 6 p.m. Central Time, plus Thursdays at noon. Every Wednesday and Saturday, we do have a live merchandise sale at 7:30, 7:45. So that's coming up in just 30 minutes on this channel, twitch.tv/beating-dream. If you're not going to join us for the sale, thanks so much for joining us for the tutorial. I hope you had fun with the Magic Wand project. We will, of course, be back with another tutorial next week, Wednesday at 6 p.m. That's going to be a back to basics wire-wrapped necklace. Okay, we haven't had a wire wrapping class, basic wire wrapping class in a while, so we've got a back to basics wire wrap necklace that's going to be coming at you Wednesday at 6 p.m. Central Time. So if we're not going to see you for the sale, hopefully we will see you for the tutorial on Wednesday or another tutorial very, very soon. So I am off to grab things for the sale, have some food myself, and we'll see you back on this channel, twitch.tv/beating-dream in half an hour.